I've been sitting here for a while. What the hell is this dark as hell title music? Dear Lord. Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Chaos Head. I have no idea what the hell I'm getting myself into because I'm lost. All right, let's go. On top of everything else that had happened, I also had to go to school today. I seriously didn't want to go, but if I didn't follow the minimum attendance sheet to a T, my calculations would get completely thrown off. Worst case scenario, I'd even have to repeat the year. I stifled a yawn and started trudging off towards school. A trip that was about 10 minutes from my base on foot. I am kind of liking these backgrounds of sorts. As soon as I started walking, my mood sank even lower. My body grew heavy, and I found it strangely hard to breathe, causing me to break into an uncomfortable sweat. This was what always happened on school days. Going to school was pure suffering. Why'd I have to go through this? Grumbling to myself with my eyes fixed on the pavement, I kept on walking. I turned to enter Shoto Park. The school was just past it. Over by the lake, an elderly couple was taking their morning stroll. Nearby, a businessman sat on a bench, reading the sports section of the newspaper. For a park on the outskirts of a bustling city like Shibuya, it was surprisingly calm. Definitely a great place to relax. I took a seat on another bench nearby. Before heading into school in the morning, I always came here to eat breakfast. I gazed out toward the peaceful pond. The water surrounded by trees with off-color leaves, their hues slowly changing as autumn rolled in. As per usual, today's menu was just a cream bun that I'd picked up from the convenience store on the way here. It'd be enough to tide me over until later tonight. I always skip lunch. I always skip breakfast. Nobody wanted to eat lunch with an otaku freak like me, and there was no way in hell I'd eat alone when surrounded by people eating and chatting together. Very antisocial, my dude. Well, that and you openly say that nobody wants to sit with you, so I can kind of relate. After washing down my breakfast with some cola, I began staring up at the sky absent-mindedly. No matter the season, the sky above Shibuya was always pretty bleak. My parents only lived a few train stations away, but there was still a clear difference between here and there. Don't get me wrong, I didn't especially mind the bleak sky, but I also couldn't really explain why. I glanced at my watch to check the time. I needed to get going or I'd be late. I had to avoid that outcome at all costs. I only came to school 2 to 3 times a week, so I had to keep a low profile. To make it through school, I had to blend in, to become invisible like the air. The ideal school day was one where nothing happened, one where I didn't have to deal with any of my teachers or DQN students. That was the ultimate goal I shot for, and it would continue to be until the day I'd finally graduate. This was Sumai Private Academy, the school I went to. Apparently, I'd only been built around 10 years ago, so it didn't exactly have a rich history or anything like that. Since it still looked brand new, it made a pretty good setting for high school TV shows. On top of that, the school uniforms had apparently been designed by some famous designer. A ton of shallow-ass girls enrolled just so that they could wear it. And while they called it a prep school, most students here didn't score much higher than the national average. So it's relatively normal, I would assume. Even more ironic, though, was that the school slogan was, "Here you'll be free!" And yet the school rules were actually really strict. Then again, they never really bothered enforcing those rules. Yeah, I mean, especially considering you seem to be going to school the absolute minimum. I am surprised you haven't been expelled or some shit. You can't get away with that in America, as far as I was aware. But then again, I was the perfect attendance kind of student. So I would not know. So, I guess the slogan wasn't really wrong in the end. I mean, I barely ever showed up and I passed my classes just fine. If you could get away with that, you could probably get away with anything. As I closed in on the school, I could hear the other students more and more clearly. I wasn't good at dealing with crowds, so I just kept my head low as I slipped through the gate. That's relatable. Nobody talk to me, nobody talk to me. I repeated those words in my head like a mantra. My younger sister also attended this school, though she still lived with my parents. Went into her, and any perfectly fine day could turn into a nightmare. You don't get along with your sister? Okay, now that we're actually kind of getting further into these classes, you can start to see that we have the faceless ones, and then we just have the characters that have slightly more attention put into their detailing. Which is interesting. Because normally in visual novels, there's not really a lot of people walking in the backgrounds for, like, a large amount of these backgrounds. So it's interesting seeing, like, actual character designs. Luckily, I hadn't run into her this time. I made it to class safe and sound. I rushed over to my seat, being extra careful not to make eye contact with people. With anyone. I could feel a nearby group of girls shoot a glance at me, but thankfully they went right back to chatting afterward. They all thought I was a freak. I was sure of it. I'm not gonna be the one to judge you, but considering where you live... Well, from my point of view, you're not really doing a good job making me like you as a main character. I'm just saying that right now. Oh boy, okay. Alright. Well, from my point of view, you 3D sluts are the real freaks here. If you think I'm a freak, then don't look at me. Just pretend like I'm not here. Don't acknowledge me at all. If you all just do that, then I won't bother you either. And I can go about my day in peace. Jesus Christ. That's why it always confuses me when I see DQNs calling people freaks. I just don't get it. Okay, it's been, like, the last time I recorded this was literally before my Italy trip. So what did you say the DQNs are? So you. Stupid, antisocial, or delinquents. So, basically, you. Pot calling the kettle black. If you think they're such a freak, then why even bother talking to them? Just stay in your corner and they'll stay in theirs. Regardless, I was just sitting there looking down at my desk when...
Yo, Taku.
Someone suddenly clapped me on the back. Startled, I turned to look behind me.
お前、今日って学校来る日だっけ?
Oh! Hi!
Misumi-kun.
Misumi? It was Misumi Daisuke, one of my classmates. He shot me a friendly smile from beside my desk. This guy was pretty handsome, so all the girls were into him, but he was also into them and dated them. A lot of them. Usually multiple at a time. If you asked me, he was balls deep into DQN terror. Wow! But wait a minute, you keep on saying antisocial. This dude seems, if the way you're describing him, he's the most social, but he's also a player. I'm very... This novel was recommended. I'm just saying. If it were up to me, I'd steer clear of him, but... Maybe. Well, okay, not really, considering the slightly terrifying image we saw. He was the only person in class who was comfortable talking to me. Though we'd had absolutely nothing in common, so I had no idea why he bothered. I'd been suspicious about it ever since the school year began. If I were a girl, I could maybe understand, but since I was a guy, it made no sense to me.
もっとこうハキハキ答えろって。
This music. You know what? I'm actually gonna do something real quick. There we go. Should be a little bit better. I would if I could. Just the act of talking to another 3D human being was painful. Anxiety made it hard for me to speak naturally. My lack of experience made it hard for me to articulate things. And I was always afraid of being teased for saying something weird. That was why I was always shrunk back. This is such a weird thing. My main character keeps putting out these things that make me relate to him in some things. But then he just goes around calling a group of girls 3D sluts. Like, what the fuck? It's got me so baffled and confused. I have no idea how to feel about him. Then again, I'm at the beginning, so yeah. You have no idea how much pain I'm going through, so please don't talk like you know me. Also, I'm not a goddamn shut-in. Real shut-ins stay in their rooms 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I'm not like that.
女相手に緊張するならともかく、そういう態度されると俺らホモと思われるじゃねえか。
Is that a problem? Wait, was he just dating girls as a cover? Had he been into guys all along? Did they do that? I tried to back away from him, nearly falling out of my chair in the process, but I quickly grabbed onto my desk to catch myself.
何してんだお前。
三角君はホモなの？
Jesus Christ, he just... Okay.
なわけねえだろ。お前、俺の女好きを忘れたのか？
だよね。はあ、ビビった。
Why is that terrifying? I mean, theoretically, he could be bisexual if you're going with that angle.
ちなみに。
Oh, God. Misumi-kun took a quick look around, then lowered his voice and grinned from ear to ear. Oh, God, are you gonna brag?
昨日、このクラスの女子で3人目を落とした。誰だか聞きたいか？
I really, really don't.
いいよ、別に。
だよ、もっと興味示せよ。田中だぜ、田中。
Real guys don't brag about that.
田中って誰？
The only guys that brag about that are the ones that are insecure about something.
お前、もうすぐ10月だってのに、未だに同じクラスのやつの顔を覚えてねえのか？
Dude, I went through my entire high school year without remembering most of my classmates' names. Good lord.
ま、3次元に興味ないんじゃ、それも当然か。
Visibly frustrated, he shrugged his shoulders and let out a sigh. Well, interestingly enough, he never insulted my taste in girls, which was, to put it simply, they had to be from the second dimension. But he'd never called me a freak for that. He just didn't bother with things that didn't interest him. That was what made me think he may not have been all that bad. That was also probably the reason why I didn't mind talking to them.
これでうちのクラスの可愛い女はほぼ攻略完了だ。
Again, real men don't brag about that unless they're compensating for something.
そろそろ隣のクラスで守備範囲広げようかって思ってんだよ。
Dude. Okay, maybe he was pretty bad. If a girl overheard some of the shit he'd said, she'd be horrified. See, that's where I bring in a recorder, and then I blackmail him that if he doesn't get his shit together, I will release this audio to a bunch of other people, to the people that he is playing with.
D 組によ、めったに学校来ねえけど、すごくいい女がいるらしいんだよ。なんか、そういうの、燃えねえか。
Dude.
あ、お前の場合は燃えるんじゃなくて、燃えだっけか？
Are you talking about 2D? That's not... Whatever.
ま、お前の興味ねえ話はそろそろやめるか。じゃあよ、ニュージェネの話 知ってるだろ。
New gen? I hadn't expected to hear those words come out of his mouth. And here I thought he was only capable of thinking about girls. I couldn't even picture him watching the news or reading the newspaper.
集団ダイブの事件さ。あれも噂によると殺人らしいぜ。
No, it probably wasn't.
へえ。
マジだって書いてあったんだよ、スポ島に。
What? So his source was Sports Tokyo? That kinda erased any and all credibility. Where's your source? The origin of a person's information, be it a document, news article, historical materials, etc. Due to the large amount of false information present on online forums, it is important for a poster to provide the source if they want to be trusted. Often referred to on the internet as sauce. For example, where's the sauce? I.e., where is the source of that? I'm ashamed to admit that it took me a long time to figure out what people were talking about with when they were there mentioning sauce. Yeah. Still, I'd already known about that rumor. Not that I cared.
で、聞いて驚け。その殺人鬼が女で、しかもかなり美人だって目撃証言があんだよ。
The killer is a girl?
女。
Watching Misumi-kun get so excited, it finally hit me. Why did he suddenly care enough to read Sports Tokyo? Same reason he cared about anything else. Something to do with girls. With it, what a twist. I guess Misumi-kun would even go after serial killers as long as they were cute. Jesus Christ, man. Have some self-respect. I mean, if it were me, I'd take a cute 2D serial killer, but... mean like Genocide Jill? Misumi-kun stared longingly at the blue sky outside the window. Then, for some reason, his face suddenly lit up as if he'd reached enlightenment itself.
どんなやつなんだろうな、犯人って。本当に美人なのかな。会ってみて。
You do realize there's still a murderer. Congratulations, you met the cute murderer. Here's your prize, death. Yeah, this dude definitely thought exclusively with the wrong head. Got that fucking right.
俺だけは殺されねえ自信があんだよな。だってほら、俺ってかっこいいだろ。いくら連続殺人鬼でも、俺みたいないい男に会ったら、コロッと惚れちゃうぜ。
The fact that you immediately referred to yourself as a nice guy already proves that she would probably kill you in a heartbeat. And that's why she wouldn't kill you? This guy was so delusional that he gave me a run for my money. The fact that he was able to say all that without even a hint of irony was honestly pretty gross.
僕は興味ないから。
でもよ、興味ないっつったって、犯人は絶対この辺うろうろしてんだぞ。どっかですれ違ってたりするかもしんねえし。
You mean like you? Yeah, for all I know, you could be the murderer. Exactly! That's what I just said! Okay, probably not. But it was entirely possible that the killer could be one of the students at this very school. If that turned out to be true, maybe I'd use my PTSD as an excuse to come in less often without hurting my attendant. Dude. You don't joke about that, man. Short for post-traumatic stress disorder. From the DSM-IV, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 4th edition, published by the American Psychiatric Association in 1994. A mental condition caused by the severe psychological shock of an accident, disaster, crime, or other intense stressor. It induces several stress-related symptoms, including emotional instability, insomnia, confusion, and vivid flashbacks. These symptoms are often triggered in response to stimulus that is similar to the original trauma. A patient must experience these symptoms for over a month in order to be diagnosed with PTSD. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I know.
なあ、今日俺と一緒に殺人現場見に行かね。ここから歩いて行けんだってよ。 まだ血とか残ってるらしいぞ。
I'm not entirely sure that's a good thing to do, but considering these are high schoolers, of course, certain morals just don't matter to them. They're still growing up. I had absolutely zero interest in doing that. I just wanted to get through school in peace, go home, greet Seiratan, and get back to being worshipped like a god in Baselard.
もう小橋と長谷川は見に行ったって言ってたしな。
Kobashi and Hasegawa.
本当に興味ないんだ。
Whoa. Whoa. Hold up, hold up, hold up. What the hell is this? What the fuck? Oh, it's a choice. I see the red thing. Oh, whoops. I felt bad about turning Misumi-kun down, since he seemed so excited about it, but I really did not want to go. But even though I was trying my hardest to refuse, he just wasn't listening.
そしたら犯人とばったり会っちゃったりしてな。犯人は犯行現場に戻ってくるってよく言うだろ。で、次はタクがターゲットにされるんだ。死をもって罪を償えみたいな。罪状はそうだな。引きこもってたからってことで。
Oh.
僕は引きこもりじゃ。
What the hell was that? Taking some offense at Misumi-kun's choice of words, I almost snapped back at him. But I quickly decided against it when I considered the possibility that he might get upset at me. So I just bit my lip and turned away. And when I did, I noticed that there was something written on the blackboard. At first, I didn't really care enough to read what was written there. My mind only registered that fact that something was written there, and not what it was. But the longer I gazed at, the more I realized something was wrong. Before I knew it, I was out of my chair.
ちょっとどいて。
おい、どうしたんだよ。
Oh. Whose eyes are those eyes? I pushed Misumi-kun aside and rushed over to the blackboard. The instant I realized what it said, I felt my heart stop. Whose eyes are those eyes? Those were the words I said to myself whenever I felt God's gaze. I'd never said them out loud before. I hadn't told anyone about them either. Not even Misumi-kun. It didn't matter how often I used it. There was no way anyone in this class could know about that phrase. So, who? Why? How? I quickly turned around and scanned the room. The only person paying any attention to me was Misumi-kun. The rest were talking to their friends, reading manga, despite manga being against the rules, or sleeping on their desks. Then, who? Who had written it? And when? Had it been there the whole time? Since before I'd even entered the classroom? I couldn't remember. It wasn't like I ever paid any attention to the blackboard anyway.
なあ、どうしたんだ。
Misumi-kun walked up to me, grabbed my shoulder, and gave me a good shake.
聞いてる？おーい、ターク。
It didn't matter who'd written it. It had to be a coincidence. It must have just been a common phrase or something. It was just a stupid, pointless scribble. Yeah, that had to be it. I tried to convince myself of that, but it was still freaking me out. I still had no clue who'd written it. I'd have to ask everyone in the class to figure that out, and I didn't have anywhere near that kind of courage. Immediately after I thought that, homeroom began and my teacher came in the room. His eyes immediately zeroed in on the words written on the board, and with a quick, "Come on, who wrote this?" he grabbed the eraser and wiped them all away. Shibuya 107. I like how every time the building in Shibuya is brought up, they always have like a different number. Like, it's just interesting. For some reason, I was still a little creeped out, but I tried to just carry on like always. If I let myself get any more scared, I'd probably start thinking that someone was deliberately targeting me. But that was ridiculous. It was just a coincidence. In the end, I had to keep telling myself that until school was over. And when it finally was, I headed toward my usual internet cafe. For an indoor person like me, at cafe was the only hangout spot I enjoyed. Being at the center of Shibuya and all, there were plenty of 3D DQN women and office drones occupying it. But since the rooms were all private, that wasn't an issue. As for the room I was in, it was the only one I always reserved. Room 37, located away in the back. It was pretty inconvenient to get refills, but since very few people ever reserved rooms near the back, it was nice and quiet. I've always wondered something that's because, ironically, I apparently learned that internet cafes were a thing because of frickin' Agretsuko, but I've always been curious about, like, the history and the reasoning as to why these internet cafes exist, you know? This has been one of those things I've always been interested in. Once or twice a week, I'd come here on my way home from school to log on to my other ESO account. Neidhart was essentially a celebrity, so this is my way to just relax and enjoy the game. While I did love being treated like a hero all the time, it sure did take its toll. That was why I'd make another avatar. This one was a female character named Lisolette. Liselot. I hadn't accomplished anything big with her. I'd merely just made her to help Neidhart look even better by comparison. Avatar, a character used to represent an internet user on websites, chat rooms, other online games, and other online communities. We all know what that is. Level 50. I played for about 3 hours to blow off some steam. I then had some fun messing around with my guildmates while talking about hardcore doujins and other random shit. Ugh. Short for doujinshi, the Japanese term for self-published works, with the most popular being media associated with otaku, such as manga or light novels. They are most often sold at various conventions or online. While doujins can feature pornographic content, many do not. Guild. When used in online games, it refers to a particular group of players that centers around a single leader. These groups are akin to small communities where users can chat and adventure together. Some guilds are so tight-knit that they organize offline meets in order to see each other in real life. By the time I'd left the cafe, it was already around 9 p.m. There were even more DQNs around at this time of night. They'd line the streets like they owned the place, stuffing their faces with greasy-ass hamburgers as they let out the most disgusting laughter imaginable. Just looking at them made me want to puke. And what was especially bad? If you just so much as looked at them the wrong way, they'd immediately come and beat the shit out of you. Fucking savages. What the... What? They weren't human. They were animals. Not fit for civilized society. Just throw them in a slaughterhouse or something, seriously. Jesus Christ, dude! Well, I say that, but there was no way I could ever hope to stand up to them myself, so there was no point in trying. Regardless, it was time to get the hell out of Center Guy. Center Guy? Guy? A Japanese word used here as a suffix meaning street. The word dori can also be used in this way. Guy. Oh, wait, I've seen that word used before. Okay, so it's kind of like a street. Okay. On my way back from At Cafe, I always dropped by Manga Dorake, which was pretty close by, or Animate, which was a bit further off. I decided to check out Animate today, so I headed toward the station's south exit. Down that path, there was an instant drop in the number of DQNs. Man, Center Guy was complete utter chaos. Just walking through it brought me nothing but pain and suffering. I never set foot there again if I could help it. I wish the whole place would just get blown to smithereens. Except At Cafe and Manga Dorake, of course. What the hell is wrong with you? Alright then, time to go browsing for some comics, doujins, or whatever else catches my eye. Oh yeah, that's right, the Blood-Toon Volume 5 DVD was coming out soon. Was it available for pre-order yet? If so, I definitely need to get one nailed down. Before I knew it, I found myself in an alleyway at Maruyamacho, the same alley I always took back home from Animate. I blinked a couple of times to make sure that I wasn't just seeing things. I took a look inside my bag. Nothing inside but the usual textbooks and a handheld game system. I didn't buy anything from Animate today. Strangely, normally I'd never leave Animate empty-handed. Well, whatever. I let out a sigh and continued walking. Shouldn't take me more than 15 minutes to reach my base from here. I was only a short walk away from the station, yet the dazzling neon lights and thick crowds had all but vanished. There were the occasional passers-by, usually older couples heading to love hotels or some random businessman heading home. But aside from that, the place was deserted. Or random businessmen heading home, sorry. Different sentence. Hard to believe this was still Shibuya, home of the bustling, DQN-infested center guy. Somehow it was already nighttime, and if that weren't enough, it was especially cloudy tonight, making it even darker than usual since the moonlight couldn't shine through.
まただ。
This arrangement almost reminds me of back whenever I was in Italy. I'd walked down this dirty alley more times than I could count, but for some reason, walking through it today, I couldn't help but feel as if I'd stepped into another world. The alley was the same as ever, but it felt like it was the first time I'd ever set foot in it. What's more, the stench of rotting garbage was lingering in the air. The moisture in the atmosphere was so thick that if I hadn't known any better, I'd have assumed that it had just been raining. The air was like syrup on my skin.
いや、ちょっと待った。
Why did I say again? Has this happened before? Shit, I didn't catch that. Had I felt this sense of jamais vu before? You mean deja vu? Deja vu is the feeling of having experienced something before, despite not having actually experienced it. It feels as if one is recalling a genuine past experience as opposed to an imagined experience or a dream. However, the individual undergoing this phenomenon is unable to recall when and where that experience occurred, which results in an intense feeling of strangeness. The cause of deja vu has yet to be determined. One theory is that it is a physiological phenomenon caused by an extremely rare temporary desynchronization of the recollection and storage functions of memory. The cause is theorized to be spasms in the brain's parahippocampal gyrus, which is in charge of spatial reasoning and the sensation of familiarity. This is also the opposite of deja vu, where one feels that they have not experienced something, despite having experienced it in the past. This is known as jamais vu. Jamais vu? That's the first I'm hearing about that. Fuck. Was I getting my delusions mixed up with reality or something? That sounded like the kind of nonsense some expert psychiatrist would say on one of those TV talk shows. Well, whatever. The point was, right at that moment, I was feeling a strange sense of jamais vu. But on top of that, I could feel a prickling sensation on the nape of my neck. A sensation I knew very well. The feeling of being watched from the heavens. And I could say for sure that it was no delusion. It felt inescapable. As if, no matter where I went, the gaze would follow. There was no doubt in my mind. Somebody was watching me. That was just how powerful the sensation was. I desperately wanted to look behind me, but I challenged myself not to. It was a game that I played every once in a while. A test. I called it the "it'll take more than that to make me turn around" game. The aim of the game, obviously, was to avoid turning around. I played it when I heard a weird sound or felt like I was being watched. Whenever I felt the gaze, I tended to imagine some kind of insanely terrifying ghost or monster looking behind me. That is not the... No? Not like I'd ever actually seen anything in the past 17 years, though. Even on the occasions when I'd lost my patience and turned around. Still, I'd have always been able to have at least a little bit of fun with it. I'd listen to the wind, raise an eyebrow suspiciously, and say phrases ripped straight out of a manga. That was the only reason why I did it. Because it was fun. Definitely not because I was scared or anything.
貴様見ているな。
You tried.
その目誰の目？なんちゃって。
Okay, to be honest, I was really just trying to act calm. But before I knew it, I'd stopped dead in my tracks. I sensed a change in the atmosphere, paralyzing my body in place. I then noticed my face was soaked with sweat, and my knees were shaking. Unable to take it anymore, I turned around. Which meant that I'd lost, but thankfully, there was no one behind me. Not even a car passing by or something. So why did I feel so uneasy? Maybe they're above you? The ringing in my ears ceased. I hadn't even realized it, but I'd been hearing some ringing sound this whole time. But still, until now, I'd been completely oblivious to it. And now that it was gone, I couldn't hear anything at all. For a place like Tokyo, this sort of sudden silence seemed completely unreal. It was the sort of perfect silence where you could hear a pin drop if you focused hard enough. So I closed my eyes and listened closely just to see what I could hear. Okay. But I still couldn't hear anything at all. That was pretty strange. No, that was definitely strange. There were all sorts of things I should have been hearing. Trains running by, car horns in the distance, some sort of small noise. So why did I hear nothing? Was something wrong with my ears? I felt compelled to shout just so I could hear something. I felt like I might go crazy otherwise. But I couldn't do it. The silence was deafening, but it made me fear what would happen if I broke it. Suddenly, a single sound resounded through the silent world. I turned my head to look for the source, but instead, I found a slew of shining objects scattered across the asphalt. Crosses?
十字架？
When I saw them, my body suddenly unfroze. And naturally, perhaps too naturally, I started moving toward them. Driven by curiosity, I picked one up. It was made of metal, with a long, pointy end like a needle. A stake? Or a nail, maybe. Whatever it was shaped like a cross. Hence, my initial confusion. It felt almost phantasmal, like it might float away at any moment. I tightened my grip on it. And the sound continued to reverberate faintly in the distance. A sound cold enough to send chills down my spine, repeating incessantly. Even so, I couldn't help but move toward its source. It was like I was in a trance. Was it just morbid curiosity? Or was I hoping that the noise would save me? That it would grant me salvation from this silent world? You know, this reminded me of that one German folktale. What was it called again? Oh, right. The Pied Piper of Hamelin. A story in which the sound of one man's pipe lured over 100 children into following him. The clanging sound refused to stop, and the farther I walked, the louder it got. It was coming from farther down the alley, past the corner on my left. I could already tell. If I turned that corner, I would be met with the source of that sound. And yet, I never thought of turning back. Such a thought didn't even cross my mind. It was like my body was moving on its own. And so, I turned the corner, and my eyes were struck by a vibrant crimson, shining through the darkness. Holy shit! That's, I don't have to censor that. My first thought was, where have I seen this art piece before? And my second thought was, it doesn't look very realistic. Meanwhile, the guy pinned to the wall looks like James from Team Rocket. Maybe I was so shocked that my brain wasn't processing things properly. Normally, when I saw something this terrifying, I'd freeze, scream like a little girl, and piss my pants all at once. The work consisted of spikes arranged on a wall, like the quills of a hedgehog or pins in a pincushion. But when I looked closer, I realized the pincushion was leaking blood. So then, that meant that the puddle of crimson below it was blood. The feeble glow of a streetlight just barely reached it, causing the pool to gleam in the darkness. Scattered around were a few shining pieces of what looked like meat. Maybe. I couldn't really tell. I tried to gulp, but my throat had gone completely dry. Not a single drop of saliva to be found. And then I realized the thing that was nailed to the wall was a human corpse. A murder that was far too unnatural, far too brutal, far too immoderate. And the one who'd done it, the one who had nailed these stakes to the wall, was a single girl. As for how I knew that, it was because she was right there, standing in front of her art, holding a bundle of stakes in her blood-soaked hand. I could only see her back from here, so I had obviously had no clue what she looked like. What I could tell, though, was that she was wearing a Sumai Academy uniform. Sume, sorry. The stench of rotting garbage was intensifying, and I was hit with wave after wave of nausea. I put a hand to my mouth to stop myself from vomiting, but I was nearly at my limit. And then, it suddenly dawned on me. The cause of my deja vu, the answer to the question, where have I seen this before?
あの時の将軍のリンク写真。
Without meaning to, I'd said that out loud, without realizing how dangerous or even deadly that mistake could be. In response to my voice, her shoulder twitched slightly. And with that, she slowly turned to face me. In that moment, it was as if her gaze was piercing straight through me. Such desolate eyes. She had just killed someone. And she's the girl from the beginning. That is... Hey, this series is not getting monetized. At first, she seemed shocked, but her expression quickly changed to a somber smile. And then...
よかった。
She softly whispered those words. Thank goodness? Thank goodness for what? And why was she smiling at me? I didn't understand. The questions kept piling up to the point where it sent a chill down my spine. Now panicking, I tried averting my eyes. The first thing that came to mind was, I don't want anything to do with this. I mean, for starters, I could hardly make eye contact with regular 3D girls, let alone psycho killers, and the police would be here soon, and I was hungry. That's why I should go home, yeah. Yeah, I need to get out of here as fast as humanly possible. If I don't, I'll go insane. And she knows me. Suddenly, she called me by name, even though I'd never told her my name, even though I'd never even met her before.
あなたに会いたかった。
When a girl covered in blood, standing over a body, tells you I was looking for you, two things. Run? Run! As she looked at me, her lips twisted into a horrifically fearsome smile, almost like she was a demon. Screaming at the top of my lungs, I ran as fast as my legs could carry me. It hurt to breathe, but I didn't care. I just kept screaming and running as if my life depended on it. At one point along the way, I turned my head to look behind me, but she didn't seem to be chasing me. I was completely winded. My lungs struggled to shovel air in and out, and my agonized panting echoed throughout my room. I plopped down on my computer chair. My body and clothes were completely drenched in sweat. What the fuck had just happened? Another one of my delusions? My nausea was becoming unbearable. Trying to alleviate it, I grabbed a cola from the fridge and chugged it as fast as I could. That delusion was way, way too realistic, even for my usual standards, and boy, was it gruesome. Too gruesome. I was still out of breath. Could simple delusion really do this to me? No, it definitely couldn't. I felt an uncomfortable sensation in my right hand. I'd been clenching my fist so hard my fingers had nearly turned white. I hadn't even noticed until just now. We're gonna look at my hand and it's gonna have like that cross showing that it wasn't a delusion. I slowly opened my hand, one finger at a time, all while my heart pounded like a drum. Lying in the palm of my hand was a single steak. Terrified by the sight of it, I instinctively turned and threw it against the wall. That was the steak from before. Well, I definitely did pick one up off the ground earlier, but how is that even possible? Hadn't it all been just a delusion? I don't know. It can't be possible. It can't be. It can't be. At my wit's end, I started pacing around my room. I needed to figure out whether that nightmare had been real or just another delusion. That was the plan. At least until I slipped on a CD case and lost my balance. In a panic, I reached out for something to keep myself from falling flat on the floor. I barely managed to find something to latch onto, but unfortunately that something was my shelf of waifus. Before I had the chance to regret it, it was already too late. In the end, no matter how hard I tried, I wasn't able to stop myself from falling ass first onto the floor. And to make matters worse, several of my beautifully arranged figures came tumbling down on top of me. Oh, God damn it, this was the worst. Everything about this was just the worst. I let out a groan as I rose to my feet. I had to make sure my figures were safe. Not my fingers. Oh, grow up. It snapped clean in two. Why did it have to be one of the expensive ones? I paid a premium online for this. I tried putting the two halves of the blade back together, but I'd never be able to fix it perfectly. Even if I used glue, any value it once had now was gone. Yeah, no. I turned to my chair and kicked it out of sheer rage. Tears began to well up in my eyes. It's a figure, dude. But yeah, I think it's more or less him just like, that shit was, that would be terrifying to anybody. He's having a mental breakdown right now. Why did I have to go through all this? What had I ever done to deserve this? I fell to the floor and just sat there for a while, heartbroken, staring dejectedly at my now swordless Ignistan. Once the storm of anger and confusion had passed, I focused my mind, filling with visions of her face, along with that modern art I'd seen. I'd actually been physically holding one of the stakes, which meant it couldn't have been a delusion. It had all been real. I really wanted to deny it, but there was no way I could. By tomorrow, it was sure to be all over the media. I really, really didn't want anything to do with this nightmare. There was no way associating with that girl, no, that demon, could bring anything but catastrophe for me. Hell, we'd only just met for the first time and there'd already been a disaster. After all, I'd brought home a critical piece of evidence from that incident. One of the stakes that had been used in the murder. I wouldn't be surprised if that on its own was enough to make me a suspect. A little bit. And if things weren't already bad enough, the demon had seen my face. There was no way out of this mess. At this rate, that demon was going to... no, forget about that. For now, I should focus on getting things sorted out in my head, for my own sake. If I valued my own life, I really needed to figure things out. No doubt about it. Shogun equals mystery girl equals murderer and demon.
あの写真は事件の予告メッセージみたいなものだったんだ。
Otherwise, there'd be no way the image could have matched up so perfectly with the crime scene. First, she'd edited that image together. Then she'd recreated it in real life, right down to the finest detail. That was how the crime had happened. No, in her eyes, I bet it was more of a work of art than a crime. She seemed like that kind of psycho dedicated to finishing any job with nothing but sheer perfection.
頭がおかしいよ。でもどうしてそれを僕に？そもそもあの女はナイトハルトが僕だってどうやって知った？僕の名前をどうやって知った？
What was I supposed to do? That demon would definitely come to kill me soon. If she already knew my name, email, and all that stuff, then there was a very good chance she knew my home address too. I curled up into the fetal position in my chair. The image of that twisted murder was etched into my mind. How could I stay calm when I could end up that way too?
死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない。
大丈夫。
What? Seraton lay sideways on my desk, facing toward me with a smile.
タッキー、あなたはこの部屋に引きこもってればいいんだよ。したらあの悪魔だって手出しできないっしょ。
You are definitely delusional. What the? Either this is your defense mechanism or some shit, but dear lord, dude.
警察がうまく捕まえてくれるって。それまでは誰も信じちゃダメ。誰の言葉にも耳を傾けちゃダメ。
That is...
悪魔ってさ、人の心の隙間をついてくるのが好きなんだよね。油断すんのはノー。できるっしょ、タッキー。
でもセラ、
逃げるが勝ちってよく言うし。三次元のことなんてきれいさっぱり忘れちゃえばいいさ。あなたには一切関係ないことだって思えば気が楽っしょ。関係ないこと考えたって無駄無駄さ。
I feel like I should censor
いい
this?
こと教えてあげる。引きこもりって最強なんよ。だって誰にも会わないっしょ。つまり誰にも攻撃されない。これぞ最強の自己防衛方法なわけさ。
Yeah, I feel like I should because they're making certain parts noticeable.
だからタッキーは引きこもりになるべきなんさ。簡単 しょ。
そうかもしれない。
Just what I'd expect from my wife. I could always count on her to give me the best advice. Having regained my peace of mind, I reached out my hand for Seraton, lightly grasping her by her slim waist. Even as our face drew closer, her smile never wavered.
ありがとうセイラ、おかげで勇気が出てきた。そうだよ、3次元なんてクソくらいだ。あの悪魔だって僕みたいなキモオタのことなんて気にも留めてないさ。僕は安全だ。安心して毎日演奏したり好きなアニメを見てれば何の問題もないんだ。
でもさっき言ったみたく油断は禁物だぞ。
分かってるよ。
I couldn't trust anyone. I wouldn't listen to a single word they had to say. All I had to do was be cautious of anything to be worried about. As long as I did that, everything would be just fine.
セイラにそこまで心配してもらえて僕は幸せだな。さてと、それじゃ気分直しにエンスロット。
Can we get away from this, please? Thank you!
Ryan Cross, Ryan Cross, 約束は今。
Huh?
Ryan Cross, Ryan Cross, 果たされるから。Ryan Cross, Ryan Cross, 解き放たれた。Ryan Cross, Ryan Cross, 週末。
Late into the night, the sound of a beautiful voice could be heard throughout Miyashita Park. I was gonna say, this novel is weird. Every time it makes me incredibly intrigued, it will have a heel turn that immediately just kind of turns me off from it. I'm gonna have to consult with one of my friends if I have to censor. The fuck have I gotten myself into?